Hello, Lawrence McElroy again in our pre-recorded video series in this time of home isolation and being alone together. You may already have a question, and that's, Lawrence, why are you wearing a mask? I mean, it's not like I have this big production crew around me or anything. And this is a video. You're not sitting right across the table from me, but I'm wearing a mask. And the reason I'm wearing a mask is someone sent me a link to a New York Times article earlier in the week. And it's an article called Looking at Masks and Respiratory Health by Jane Brody. And more or less, what it boils down to is if we are not breathing properly before we put on the mask, it's no wonder we have issues in breathing when we put on the mask. So I want to address some aspects of breathing. That may bring another question. Well, Lawrence, haven't you already done something regarding breath? And the answer is yes, I did. As a matter of fact, our first series of videos on our YouTube page, what we did was we addressed the 5 root goals of Tai Chi and Qigong, of which regulating the breath is one of them. Now, I might repeat some of the points that I made there in this video, but this is different. This is going to be different. And by the way, I want to go back to this for a moment. Masks help. If you're in an area that the curve hasn't flattened, it'll help you flatten the curve. If you're in an area like I am, where the curve has, it's pretty much flattened, it will keep it that way. Masks are not tyrannical. They're not cowardly. They're not political. What they are is necessary. So anyway, I'll get off my little mask soapbox. So the breath. The breath is very important. How important? Well, let me give you an idea. The first thing we do when we are born is inhale. The last thing we do before we die is guess. Exhale. The pattern of the breath is the pattern of life. And we can age ourselves by how we're breathing, according to, certain traditional Chinese thoughts. And that is when we're first born, we breathe from here. As we get a little bit older, we breathe from here. Middle age, we're in the chest. As we get into our elderly years, it's in the throat. Note the direction. So the breath is very important. And we want to, in the Chinese arts, we say all the time, return to the child. And that includes with the breath. Most of us breathe only to 10 to 20% of our breath capacity. That's not very much. Oxygen is life. Oxygen is one of the primary things we need to stay alive. And when we are not breathing deeply, our blood is poorly oxygenated, our energy is low, we have poor toxin release, and it can lead to all sorts of different health issues. And when we're breathing up here, when we're breathing in our chest, when we're breathing shallow, when we're breathing 10 to 20% of our breath capacity, the breath becomes rapid. And a rapid, shallow breath will trigger the sympathetic nervous system. And that's the nervous system that fires for the flight or fight response, which means we increase our tension, we increase our anxiety, we cannot be calm, and all of the ramifications of going through life constantly in that triggered fashion, it just isn't good. So this is the depths of the ocean. Why do we want to wade around in the shallows when we can swim in the depths of the ocean? Breathing deeply beyond that 10 to 20%. With the diaphragm moving down, the belly active, you're actually massaging the internal organs of the lower abdominal cavity. You can aid in your digestion simply by breathing deeply. For those who always have to pop some sort of antacid, this can help. Just breathing deeply can have an impact. You don't have to take a pill. Just breathe deeply. Breathing deeply has also been said. I remember reading an essay long time ago. And the first time I read it, I was like, yeah, that can't be right. But it's one of those things that have been proved out through experience over the years. And that's, if you are breathing deeply, it is impossible to hold on to a strong emotion, be that anger or sorrow or frustration. When you're breathing deeply, it ain't going to stick around, which is why I put a little sticker in the center of my steering wheel in my automobile. Because in times when, well, not recently, but when I'm out on the road in Long Island is the one time that really, 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 really tests my patience. Well, let me put it this way. I allow it to test my patience, but I don't allow it to test my patience because I have the sticker and I breathe deeply. So when somebody cuts me off or is driving or doesn't driving in a way that is frustrating to the flow of traffic, or say just somebody who doesn't use their turn signal, it reminds me to breathe deeply, and I can let go of that frustration. I can let go of that anger of someone who's driving in a way that would normally annoy me. So maybe it's the same thing for you. You need a little sticker in your car to remind you to breathe deep. Maybe you need a little sticker, on your smartphone, because whenever it rings, it drives you bad. Whatever. But breathing deeply, and you can let go of those strong emotions. So the deep breath is just so important. And a lot of people ask, why or how do you breathe deep, or to what amount? You're saying 10 to 20% isn't enough. Well, what's enough? And the answer to that question, my standard answer to that question is, 70, 75% of your breath capacity. You don't want to breathe to full capacity because that creates stress. If you're inhaling until you can't inhale anymore, and exhaling until you can't exhale anymore, it's too much work. So a comfortable amount, 70, 75%. Of course, the next question is, well, I don't know what 70, 75% of my breath capacity is. How do I determine that? My usual response there, because you can't just, anyway, my usual response there is, well, breathe in all that you can and let out, 25, 30%. Sometimes people laugh at that. Sometimes they don't. So you have to be the judge of that. What fills you up, but not to the point where you're creating extra work just to take a breath or to let it go. And a deep breath means this is moving less than the chest. Now, the best way, I'm going to slide back. So maybe you want to drop down to the floor with me. I will keep talking through this, or you can take your device, where whatever you're using to watch this video, down to the floor with you and stretch out, because most people will suggest, when they're teaching people how to breathe deeply, that you want to remove, all the challenges. And as you set up or you're standing, different things are working, and here everything is relaxed. And you put one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. And as you breathe, the belly should be moving, the belly hand should be moving more than the chest hand. Hopefully the chest hand is hardly moving at all. Now, there are all sorts of different ways as far as what should and shouldn't be expanding and compressing here. The basic, fundamental, what most people refer to as a natural breath, is when you inhale, the belly expands. So the diaphragm's moving down, and the belly comes out. On the exhalation, the diaphragm moves up, and the belly comes in. I'm also breathing through my nose, and we'll talk about that when I sit back up. Now, you can also reverse the belly movement, but still the hand on the chest isn't moving. But when I inhale, relax again, the belly moves in, sending the breath down deeper into the body cavity. And on the exhale, the belly relaxes as the diaphragm moves up. So as the diaphragm moves down, actually compressing the belly. But again, this hand isn't moving. And on the exhale, belly relaxes into its natural state of, relaxation. Not going to talk about, if the lower back is expanding or compressing and when it's expanding and compressing. What most people find if they're not really concentrating is that if you're doing that inhalation and the belly is compressing, the lower back expands. There's actually a breath that I referred to in the earlier video that is the Dantian breath that you're consciously causing on the inhalation, the belly and the lower back to expand together. That's neither here nor there, but just work on this, moving less than this. First, on the floor, stretched out. Then in a seated position, a chair, probably preferable to being on the floor. And again, just experience, because it's a different structure. But this hand should still be moving as little as possible. And then standing. So again, a different structure. So you explore those steps. I hear so often, did I already say this? People on the mat and in the room will tell me, when I'm in class, no problem. I breathe deep from beginning of the class to end, or when I'm playing the forms at home. But otherwise, I'm not breathing deeply. It's like, no. We should breathe deeply all the time. It's not just an occasional or when I'm playing my tai chi or playing my Qigong. The breath needs to be deep. And it is something which can be trained. We don't think about the breath and we let it, fall into some pattern. One of the oddest thank yous I ever got was somebody who said, "Thank you for saving my life." And I was like, what? How did I do that? It was only after a few classes. And she said, well, I didn't realize how shallow I was breathing, and I feel so much better now and have so much more energy. And I just feel in better balance. And I just really think that saved my life. So I mentioned while I was on my back that I was breathing through my nose. Normally on the mat and in the room, I'll say nasal or oral breath, whatever works for you works. And, our attitude is usually just breathe. Because, especially in the initial days of somebody's program of study, we don't want them to get tied in knots about their breath. However, nasal breath is also really important for a multitude of reasons. Now, one thing that I didn't know for the longest time, and I ain't going to tell you how long, we are also absorbing oxygen as we are exhaling. It's not just on the inhale, it's as we're exhaling. And breathing through the nose slows down the breath process, which means I have more time, both on the inhalation and the exhalation, to take in more oxygen into my body, so the blood is better oxygenated. Breathing through the nose, because you're breathing through the nose, helps to balance the pH in the body. And the nasal mucosa it's mucosa. Yeah, I'm looking at my notes over here. Mucosa are stimulated. And the nasal mucosa is what sort of establishes a breath pattern for us. So if we're breathing through the mouth, that doesn't get stimulated. And the breath pattern won't adapt to us. You won't be able to adapt your breath pattern to a particular pattern, to a particular way of breathing. Sorry, I mix up my words here. It also, think about nose. I don't know about you, and maybe this is too much information, but, as an older man, especially, I have nasal hair that I have to trim from time to time. Breathing through the nose filters and warms the air. So you have that nitric acid, not nitric acid, that's wrong. Nitric oxide is generated through the breath if you're breathing through your nose. That helps us fight viral and bacterial infections. I can't think of any reason why we want to breathe through the nose so we have a stronger immune system to fight off viruses. Can you think of anything? It also stimulates, nasal breath stimulates the hypothalamus portion of the brain. That's responsible for such things as heartbeat, blood pressure, sleep patterns, memory, emotion, appetite, all sorts of things. Which again, if we're breathing through the mouth, the hypothalamus doesn't get stimulated. Those processes aren't also stimulated. And why should we not want them stimulated? Breathing through the mouth also can cause you to lose body moisture, which is not a good thing. And when we're breathing slowly and deeply through the nose, it can also help us during workouts. I know that's something that I have difficulty remembering sometimes in some of my workouts, that I take big gulps of air through my mouth. And when I remember that, okay, you can do the same thing, it's going to slow down the breath a little bit. I get better oxygenated blood. I don't white out at the end of an intense set or something like that. So breathing through the nose, really, really important. Breathing deeply through the nose. That's what we need to do. Not just because we're wearing these. You like my mask? It's a nice sort of abstract tiger theme they're going on there. So there you go. That's really it in a nutshell. Breath is important. It's inhalation is the first thing we do when we're born. Exhalation, the last thing we do before we die. We want to breathe in the depths of the ocean, and it's best if we're doing that through the nose as opposed to the mouth. So, as always, I hope you found this mildly entertaining, and that you learned something, that it made sense. And if you have any questions or any observations about the content of this video, feel free to share them in the comments. We'll be sure to respond accordingly. And you may have noticed that earlier in the week, we posted a Facebook Live session on this YouTube channel. We're going to be doing that moving forward. We're going to be having less original content on the YouTube channel and migrating more of the live sessions that we did starting in late March on a weekly basis, just like one a week, like we've been doing the original content. And then every once in a while, we'll slide in a little original content. We still have some stuff in the queue that makes sense to do it here as opposed to in a live session. So that's what we're going to do. So anyway, and the live sessions are continuing at this time on Water Tiger School on the on Facebook on Mondays at 10 a.m. And of course, the full archive is available through the Facebook page at this time, and we're building it here on the YouTube channel. And I think that's it. We'll keep doing this on a weekly basis through at least the summer. And then we'll see as the library programs may or may not get fired back up. So again, if you're in an area where the curve is flattened, this will keep it flattened. If you're in an area where the curve has not flattened, this will help flatten it. Can't emphasize that enough. Keep washing your hands. Be aware. Be well. Be safe. And keep listening to the medical professionals and the scientists, please, as to what we should be doing so we can get to that light at the end of the tunnel. Because otherwise that light's just going to be a train coming back the other way. So until next time, thanks. And we'll talk to you again at some point in the future.